True Story is a documentary podcast powered by the Institute of Documentary Film. You can find news from the world of film on all the common platforms such as iTunes, Google Podcasts, or Spotify, as well as on docweb.net.
Hey, hello, this is Adam Kruk. I will have a pleasure to moderate the discussion about Ukraine, about Polish approach to the situation in Ukraine. And I have great guests today, two of them actually. First is Piotr Pawlus, an excellent Polish DOP, and also a director of a movie in Ukraine, which premiered at Berlinale this year. So as the title says, this is a documentary on Ukraine, on war in Ukraine, and I strongly advise it. I've seen it at Berlinale, and that was a very strong thing to watch. So welcome, Piotr. If you want to add something to your biography, please feel free.
Hello, everybody. I just add something that this movie was directed by me and co-directing by Tomasz Wolski. So it's to be correct. Yeah.
Tomasz is not here with us, but if he's watching, we are saying hi to Tomasz Wolski. And the second guest is Mikołaj Góralik, who's a film expert, film historian, who's investigating cinema, Polish cinema, Czech cinema, cinema of the region, and actually he's connecting from Prague, where he lives. Hello, Mikołaj, and feel free to say something more about your work.
Hi, hello. So yeah, I can just mention that at the time when the war started, I was working for VOD platform DaFilm. So I was also preparing some curated programs, including Ukrainian films. It's a Czech platform, but also distributing in Poland. So I can tell more about this this approach from here, from Prague, later on. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. We were supposed to have a third guest today, Natalia Grzegorzyk, who is a film producer. So we would have both director, scholar, and distributor, and the producer. And Natalia is producing in Poland, but also in Czech Republic, also lately in Ukraine. So she cannot be here with us because of her voice. She had problems with her voice today, but she has sent us some interesting notes about the things we're going to speak about. So maybe this way, at least, we can include Natalia in our discussion. So yes, let's start maybe with the general idea. It's been more than a year until the war in Ukraine started. I mean, like in the whole Ukraine, because we all perfectly know that actually the war in Ukraine lasts almost for a decade. So it's not a new thing, it's just escalate. And if you could say how, in your opinion, in your perspective, and among your friends and film industry, how the war has changed the film industry in general and personal too.
Okay, so maybe I could start it. So for my opinion, for the first thing is that each of connection with Russian industry, which also involved. They produce Russian produced a lot of TV series, commercials, and another video content in Ukraine. So it was like a big market. So yeah, after the war was started, it's totally crashed. So I think that, for my opinion, is for each of these sites, because these people probably couldn't want to fight together against each of them. So I think that it was the main for the film industry to earn money, to prepare the project, for developing the project and the production. It was the main thing that everything crashed after the war started.
Okay, Mikołaj?
It crashed, but I observed that it was like also very important to for Ukrainian filmmakers to keep some continuity with filming. And at the time, we were supposed to organize a festival focused together with Docu Days, and after the war started, of course, like filmmakers in Czech Republic and in Poland were like sending support, different kind of support to Ukraine. But the request that we got from the festival as a streaming platform was that already some other things were taken care of. They had already like weapons, helmets, and other supplies, and they asked us to send film equipment because it was important for them to shoot everything, because the images have the power. So actually we collected some old cameras from like some old projects in Czech Republic and sent it to Ukraine to let them continue their work.
Yes, I think like the whole world of distribution, festivals, etc., has changed because Russian cinema was basically banned. I do program myself some events and festivals, and sometimes I was thinking whether is it appropriate to include Russian films or not. So you have to also investigate the artist, the director. Did he protest or not? You kind of go not only to the quality of film, but always the moral issues. So I think those moral issues are much more present in the film world. Don't you agree?
Yes, so let me start now. Of course, but we also realized that because we wanted to prepare some program with Ukrainian films very soon, so we realized that we had actually a lot of films in the catalog. So this the cinema was like always present, but not in that like new context. So then we discovered that a lot of documentary films from previous years had this topic of this big neighbor and the threat, and it got like new meanings putting together in like one big program of 20 films on contemporary Ukraine and Russia. But of course, there are like new films coming. I remember that after a few months, after the invasion started, I came to Krakow Film Festival, and then I met in person a lot of Polish filmmakers who just came back a day or two from Ukraine, and they were full of those stories. It was really a strange feeling to enjoy this festive atmosphere of film festival and talk with those filmmakers with the fresh fresh experience from the war zone.
Yes, Piotr was there, so maybe Piotr,
Yes.
if you can say a few words about your experience in Ukraine. Not everyone, unfortunately, have seen your movie, so if you could just let us insight your movie. How did you find yourself in Ukraine? When did it all started, and how long did it last?
Yeah, I started last year when the war was starting in 24th of February. The first 2-3 weeks I moved there I'm driving by car to Ukraine with humanitarian help, and on the way back I took people. But for this period of time, I focused only for help. After that, I decided to go there inside the Ukraine with a camera and start do documentary film. Yeah, and when I was first time for filming, I was in the south. It was second part of March. It was in Odessa, Mikołaj region, and on the Kherson direction. And after that, I decided we connect the power with Tomasz because I prepared another project, but it's not done yet. So maybe next year or half year. We'll see. And when I came back to Poland, Tomasz proposed the idea of the movie, and I said, okay, let's do it. And after that, I was several times in Ukraine in a different period of time. I mean, like a early spring, late spring, on the summertime, and on the winter time. But my last trip, it was 1 month ago. I was in Lviv for 1.5. Yeah. So my experience, I spent around 60 days there, and my experience, especially when I back to Poland, that it was the silence. I mean that there is no siren. There was no alarm, no hit, no rockets. Just, I mean, like Poland, like a safe country when I crossed the border. So, yeah, but I felt, a little bit strange because I have an option. Because most of the people who are living there, they don't have option to go there. I mean, woman and child could escape, but sometimes they don't have money, don't have opportunity to they don't have choice. They have to stay in their house and just waiting when the war will finish. But no one knows when it could be happens. Because last year when I on the spring, when I talked with the people thought it will start. I mean, it's like a 2 or 3 months. It will be a war, and after that it will finish. But it's still going on, so it's still continue. So nobody knows how long it will happen. Yeah.
And how dangerous it is to filmmakers to shoot in Ukraine. And Mikołaj mentioned that there is a lot of interest in Ukraine. So do you, while shooting, you've met Tomasz Wolski, but do you meet actually a lot of filmmakers? We know Sean Penn was there because he...
yeah, but Tomasz wasn't in Ukraine. Tomasz was in Warsaw, yeah. So all the time. Yeah, but Sean Penn was in Kiev, but I haven't met there. At once I met a person who are filming in nearby Izium about the medics in the front line. I mean, in the women who are in the front line. But I heard that a lot of people, a lot of Ukrainian filmmakers are filming and documenting the war, and especially on the front line, but there is a very dangerous. I mean, because you don't know sometimes what's going on there and what's happened for a minute. Yeah, and for the filming, there is some kind of responsibility, especially on the filming landscape, or because when I try to be responsible for this, because on the landscape there is some position. I mean that if for example for me it's just the landscapes, but for another person it could be some kind of some coordinate, some points, some roads, some you know, for to do some to prepare some like a strategical place. So I have to during my trip I had to be responsible for this. And also there's the main problem was in a countryside it was the mines, because I had to move, I had to walk or drive by car just to, mainly on the main road, because I couldn't go to somewhere to the forest to just if I looking for something interesting that just across the field or something, or but I have to be very careful for this, to how to move there, how to I have some discussion with Tomasz to do some like a wide shot, and I said to him that I cannot go there because I have to be only this. I know that this frame, it's not, maybe it's not perfect, but this only this what we could have, because like a 100, if I would like to go on the other place, it could be very dangerous. Of course, if I couldn't go, I didn't want to go there. So it's because especially the mines, it's you know, you cannot see it, you just step it and then it will be explosion. So
okay, we know that in Poland there is a big interest in war, like your movie, Piotr, proves it, but there are also many others, like the Hamlet syndrome, which actually was made before the war escalated, or now as it was by Damian Kocur, which is currently showing in Cannes. There is many other titles to come. Natalia Grzegorzyk is also producing a film in Ukraine. And how the situation looks like in Czech Republic, maybe Mikołaj, you can tell us more about it. How Czech filmmakers, especially documentary filmmakers, respond to what's happening in Ukraine?
I think that comparing to Poland, it's not that many projects. The significant one, I think it was the opening film of Jihlava Film Festival. It's the biggest documentary film festival in Czech Republic. And usually it was Czech film as the opening film, but in 2021 it was already film on Belarusian protests, and in 2022 Jihlava decided to screen Eighth Day of War. It's a film of Ukrainian director Oksana Moisenyuk living in Czech Republic, and she just shooted documentary during these first days of war, how Ukrainian community in Czech Republic react to those events, how they try to help. About other project, I think it's too soon to tell. I observed like many support from film institutions, from festivals that screened films on Ukraine, not only Ukrainian, but also like Hamlet Syndrome was screened in Czech Republic on film festivals. Of course, the topic was present in the film industry, but I don't know that much about other projects made by Czech filmmakers.
Okay, Natalia also mentioned Maciej Ślesicki is now working on fiction feature about Bucha and documentary.
Maciek Hamela.
Maciek Hamela. Sorry, and Maciek Hamela is not working in the rear view.
No, he made a documentary, very smart, which was presented in a Millennium Doc against Millennium Doc, like a documentary film festival in Warsaw.
Okay, and Piotr, maybe you know some more projects that are happening now in Poland, and there also are more Ukrainian filmmakers that actually are working in Poland because of course safety and other reasons. So do you keep in touch? Is there like a community of filmmakers that are interested in that issues?
I don't know. I mean that I know only the like Ukrainian sound designer who are living in Ukraine, in Kiev, or in the west of Ukraine, and they are still working. Like they do what they did before the war. So for them, it's nothing happens. I mean, because they have some like international also. If they are sound designers, so they need only the internet connection. So it's and they could work around the world and yeah. And also, I mean, the quality of this kind of person is very good. So it's it was my experience when I mean doing the work with these people.
Okay, I was also wondering, because except for the real war that is horrifying, there's also informational war. So we need to know what is happening in Ukraine, because other way, like the Russian propaganda can manipulate. So I was wondering about challenges that it creates, because we have to have news what's happening. We have to have documented what happened in Bucha, for example, and but this is more like a news approach. So how do you see this tension between doing non-fiction art house film and reporting on what actually happened, documenting in the John Grierson sense that you actually this is a document of something that is real?
I mean, each of this type of content is necessary because it's a different type of language. So it's a different type of. I mean, the target is the difference. I mean, the reportage, the news, and like non-fiction films. And for example, my experience was about the non-fiction films, and I know that it was difficult because I had to spend like a few hours on the same place. So when I work, when I prepare the reportage, for example, I just spend 1 hour here and then moved to the other place and to the other place to collect and then connect everything and make some kind of 20 minutes of reportage. But for documentary, for example, I spent like a few hours on the same place. Sometimes it was 1 day, sometimes it was 2 days. For example, in the metro station, I was living with the people and I spent there around a week with the people and feeling the people how they exist underground, and it was the most difference between documentary and the reportage and the news that you have to spend a lot of time on the same place. But I mean, the dangerous experience is the same because you never know where something happens. So, for example, when I was close to the Russian border, I just checking what's happened if, for example, someone, I mean, there will be attack from this side, and how I moved, how I try to, how I moved to the west of Ukraine. Yeah, and it was I had some. Sometimes I had some kind of. I think about it. How to escape, how to move when it will be attacked. I mean that like tanks and soldiers, because the rockets are every time. I mean, every time, and they are, so they hit every day.
Mm-hmm. There are also like the hybrid, I would say, forms. I don't know if you've seen Superpowers by Sean Penn. This was supposed to be a movie about Zelensky, and it's like a love letter actually to Zelensky, but at the same time it's very self-centered, so it's I would say mixed approach. It's a lot of Sean Penn himself rather than Ukraine, but you can feel that he wants to help, he wants to do something, even though maybe he's not very experienced documentary film maker. And how is it in Czech Republic? How the news report on war in Ukraine, and how the director? Well, what's the difference between the let's say art world and journalists in Czech Republic?
Yes, as Piotr mentioned, the biggest difference is the time you devote to your characters and how much you're going to spend with them. So there are also like a lot of fake news. It's like also based on the on the strong influence of Russia in Czech Republic in general. And I just wanted to mention something else. I don't know if I will reply to your question, but when you mentioned it, if it's possible to make like art or just pure documentary films. I was switching from documentary more to films for children, and I just found out that there is a local small festival in Prague that is showing films made by kids, and somehow film submissions go to Ukraine this year. So those festivals got also a lot of short films made by children in Ukraine, and for them it was like kind of relief that they should like they totally not documentary stories, but some fairy tales, some science fiction movies. But somehow they reacted to the situation where they are, and those films are also like telling something about what's going on there, but from a totally different perspective. So it was really interesting to watch those amateur films, and yeah, we keen to analyze all films made nowadays in Ukraine as documentary films, but there are also different genres, and it's important to mention all those hybrid forms and that are commenting it also from the director and author perspective.
It's interesting you mentioned cartoons, film for children, because actually it was very important tool when the war started and we had a lot of refugees, and me myself and with the friends from Wrocław Film Foundation, we are organizing screenings. And we're organizing screenings also with Ukrainian subtitles, but actually they weren't very popular. What was popular were the cartoons like, you know, Luca or Encanto with in Ukrainian, because kids that came here, which were refugees, were actually, a lot of them were traumatized, and they needed to distract, they needed to escape, and like too heavy films, sometimes they are repeating the trauma, especially for children, and if you show something that will distract you from what happened, it might work better. So do you think like documentaries on war, like how difficult can it be for the Ukrainian audience to watch them? Like Piotr, you just had some screenings at Millennium Dogs Against Gravity. Did you have a lot of Ukrainian audience, and what was the response?
I don't in Warsaw, I think no, but in Berlinale it was when our films had a premiere there. I met a lot of people from Ukraine, and they were very thankful that they could watch it, and yeah, and it was they were very grateful for this movie, because I tried to imagine that I traveled around the Ukraine, I mean inside nearby the front line or in the front line, or some liberated villages which was already liberated, and mostly the normal people who are like who are just living and working, who escape, they cannot see what's happened inside the country, and they could watch it on our movie, you know. because it's explained how to look, how is it look like inside.
Okay, I asked also Natalia, Natalia Grzegorzyk, who's the producer, about possibilities of co-production with Ukrainian nowadays, and she responded the two biggest challenges are that it is impossible to get Ukrainian funding at the moment, because obviously the country has bigger issues now, like defending itself. And the second was, it is risky and complicated to shoot fiction films in Ukraine in terms of the safety of the crew. You, Piotr, was already explaining a little about how dangerous it is to shoot. It is way easier, writes Natalia, to shoot documentaries. Personally, I'm co-producing a documentary, Flowers of Ukraine, directed by an emerging Ukrainian director, Adelina Borec, in co-production with Ukraine. We have the support of the Polish Film Institute and the Euroimage. In order for a film to be an international co-production, each country should bring some financing on board. Our film has already had development support from Ukraine Cultural Foundation that was granted before the war broke out, and so we could apply for the Euroimage as a two-country co-production. We are shooting in Kiev as well. Do you think it is like we have this documentaries on Ukraine, but the co-production is not that easy? I know that there are some movements in Ukraine that filmmakers shot themselves and they're putting it directly online. Do you feel like this solidarity it's bigger? How does it work from your perspective?
Could you repeat the question? I mean that
Natalia wrote.
Yeah,
but like with the from your perspective, do you feel like this solidarity in the film world kind of emerged, and is it common to invite Ukrainian colleagues and search for those kind of connections? How does film industry try to support Ukrainian film industry?
Yes, I think that it's works. I mean, also especially that it's that we invite the people for our projects. So and now we know that they do the best. I mean that the quality of their works are very good. So it's I mean, after the war, I would like to work with them for another project. So it's because I mean that also the because they understand a lot of things, a lot of words which we said during to do some correction, and they did it very well. So yeah, and I think that if each of the each country, if has some kind of funding for to help to do this the movie about, I mean, the Ukrainian during the wartime, so it will be like a huge achievement for the future for people. So it's, for example, because they have to know what's going on, like a next 50 years, and then our child, they would like to check what's going on. So they have it because everybody prepared the material. So it's I think it's need to support this the people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can just add that it applies not only to filmmakers but also other film experts and film professionals. For the festival that I cooperate with, we are going to also invite some members to jury from Ukraine this year. So yeah, I agree with Piotr that it's really important.
Yeah, that's for sure that the interest in films about Ukraine has grown, and Natalia also wrote this about this solidarity that we're talking about, that some new funds to support Ukrainian filmmakers were established. For example, Polish Film Institute was the first one to act, creating a special program dedicated to support Ukrainian talent called Polish-Ukrainian Film Initiatives. It was created already in the spring of 2022. This year, the allocation for the program is 5 million zloty, and it's for the development and production of documentary and animated films, script stipends and festivals and other film initiatives. The idea of the program is that beneficiary is a Polish producer with an already established company, and the project must include Ukrainian talents. So this is what we're talking about. And this year at the Berlinale, European Solidarity Fund for Ukrainian films was announced. It is run by the French CNC and brings together 16 partners from 13 different countries. And this week during the Cannes Film Festival, they announced the first beneficiaries of the program, supporting 11 production, amongst them 8 documentaries. So I think this is a great news for documentary film makers, and of course, it's hard to talk about Ukraine when we are sitting home being safe, but those acts of solidarity, of support might be something optimistic in those difficult times. If you just will be finishing shortly, if you could think of something optimistic in this situation, what it would be?
When the war will be finished. Optimistic situation, because after the war it will be a huge process to rebuild the country, and it's take a time. So it's the same like on a Second World War. The people are still, the Second World War are still inside the Poles. So, and for the Polish people, for the Polish community. So it's I mean that it's to be strong is the, and to be optimistic for the future is yeah. I mean that people have to believe for the optimistic and to be strong to that the war will finish soon.
Okay.
Yes, and maybe some of those films that are coming can bring a bit of optimism to Ukrainians, also those living abroad, and can help them somehow to work with their feelings and with all these horrible things.
Okay, so thank you so much for being with KineDok today, and I think we can all send a lot of love and support for Ukraine. And thank you for being and for all that you do. Piotr, Pawlus, and Mikołaj Góralik were our guests tonight. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.